Chapter 10. Good Company. Magic is culture. Han Ying wiped beads of sweat from his forehead as his horsehair brush moved with caution over a slip of stiff yellow paper. Mr. Fong patrolled up and down the rows of stressed-out students at the old Qin Dynasty calligraphy desks in a small, cloistered room made of dark wooden planks. The only light came from flickering candles and through the paper stretched across the wooden frame of the sliding door. Han Ying sat cross-legged at one of these desks, his legs starting to hurt as he had trouble recalling what he hadn't studied. He knew the principles of talisman crafting, though.
That is why only stewards, scholars, and pioneers of culture can become magicians. You are all historians, artists, sociologists, or disciplined in some form of the humanities. Because you understand our culture, you have the ability to understand our magic.
Using one hand to hold his uniform's loose sleeve and keeping a tense grip on his calligraphy brush with the other, Han Ying drew the final stroke of his 6th character, 6th of 13.
And like culture, magic is endlessly complicated, yet devilishly simple. Your mind racks over the nuances for a lifetime, while your intuition understands them from the moment you come of age. It lies beneath consciousness, but without discipline, it cannot be controlled.
Mr. Fong continued his lecture.
Language, art, dance, writing, these are the ways in which culture expresses itself. These are your weapons. Master them before they master you.
9 characters done. They were supposed to copy something from a book, but Han Ying hadn't read it. Nonetheless, he was confident he could pass. His idea for a charm was advanced, yet practical, as long as it worked.
Lose yourself, and not only will you be under threat from your own powers,
Mr. Fong said,
but you will be under the sword of every other magician who has succeeded where you failed. You are Chinese, you are Han, and therefore every magician whose culture's nature stands against ours will try to see you dead. Europeans, Africans, Muslims, the Japanese, their magicians wouldn't hesitate to kill you if given the chance.
11. Now was the home stretch. Han Ying dipped his brush into his shallow ink tray again, waiting for excess ink to drip off. It had to be perfect.
Your talismans will be symbols of your values, your discipline, and your will. Talismans are Taoist magic. They are more forgiving than celestial incantations, but they are just as unpredictable. Learn to master what you can control. Learn to let go of what you can't.
13. Han Ying put his brush down.
Finished?
Mr. Fong was looming over him.
I think,
Han Ying said, unable to keep eye contact with his teacher for more than a split second at a time. He looked over his talisman. What was wrong with it? Had he missed something? His little brother set his brush down loudly to signal his completion. Mr. Fong glanced over at Wei Ying.
Very nice, Wei Ying. You and your brother will be our first pair. Zhangs, go to the front.
After having finished his talisman with such bravado, Wei Ying seemed nervous all of a sudden. Despite being unsure of himself, Henry gave his brother a confident nod before standing. Wei Ying followed him up to the front of the room. They stood facing each other.
Why don't you tell us what your talismans are designed for?
Mr. Fong said.
Wei Ying, why don't you go first?
Wei Ying hesitated, slightly bouncing on the balls of his feet.
My talisman draws on traditional Taoist and Wudang symbols for internal Qigong. It's like the Wuxing twin charms in our books. This one gives me power over water,
he said.
Very good. Han Ying?
Han Ying held up his talisman. I designed this to draw on the Confucian concept of the mandate of heaven. Mr. Fong blinked.
The mandate of heaven? Han Ying, these are Taoist talismans. I thought that you were meant to memorize and recreate one of the charms from the book, Wei Ying said.
But, I mean, if it works, right? This could...
Did you read the book? Fong asked.
He had grasped the main concept.
Yes,
he nodded, trying to keep his eyes from darting around. Mr. Fong sighed.
All right, fine. What is it supposed to do?
Reflect any opponent's magical attack. The rest of the class chuckled as Henry narrowed his eyes. Fine, he'd show it in action. Wei Ying and Henry both tucked their talismans into their belts.
Salute your opponent, Mr. Fang said. Let's see if these work as intended.
Both brothers offered a salute to the other, with their left hand covering their right fist. Wei Ying sat into a high, empty stance, pushing his right palm forward and hooking his left hand behind him. Han Ying pushed his hands forward, one further than the other, in a basic Wing Chun stance, sliding his feet apart on the wooden floor. Immediately, his younger brother broke into a series of long, graceful strikes that only hit air, but sent water rushing forth from nothing. They were slow, so Han Ying managed to dodge all of them. The class clapped for Wei Ying's success in making his talisman, but Han Ying could see that his brother wasn't quite satisfied. Had he wanted to hit him? That wasn't the point of the exercise. Now, Han Ying. Wei Ying, attack him. Show us your talisman, Han Ying. Adrenaline pumped through him as he focused on the magic in his talisman, bringing the presence of arcane energy to his forearms. Or at least he tried. The magic wasn't budging. It was like trying to drag someone out of bed. Wei Ying punched before he was ready, launching a bolt of water. Han Ying made a move to parry the attack, but hadn't accounted for how close Wei Ying had gotten, and he slammed his younger brother in the chest and forced him onto his behind. Silence permeated through the room before their classmates began to murmur among each other. What was that for? Wei Ying demanded. I wasn't ready. You attacked me, Han Ying said. A bolt of water slapped him in the side of the head, sending Han Ying to the ground. Shit, he cried, cradling his head. What was that for? To teach you not to hit me. Wei Ying jabbed an accusatory finger at him. Are you serious? It was an accident. Han Ying got to his feet, as did Wei Ying. I'm not losing to you. This isn't a competition. Boys. Mr. Fang tried to break them up. Calm down, both of you. I will if he does, Wei Ying said, and if he apologizes. Apologize? For what? Quiet, Fang snapped. He took a deep breath. Han Ying, why weren't you ready? He shrugged. I'm not sure. The magic just wouldn't listen to me. Fang snatched the talisman away. Because you've constructed it wrong. Confucian talismans do not use oracle bone script. You lack attention to detail, Han Ying. Your magic suffers as a result. I know it may seem tedious to you, but without the basics, there is no innovation. You can't just jump to the abstract because you don't want to deal with the concrete. This is a product of all theory and no technique. But it would have worked if it was. It wasn't, Wei Ying said. Next time, try to put in more than the bare minimum effort. Han Ying clenched his fists. He wasn't slacking off. He wasn't trying to be lazy. He was better at martial magic than any of them could ever hope to be. That's not your judgment call to make, Wei Ying, Mr. Fang said. But Han Ying, life cannot be about doing solely what you enjoy or are comfortable with. In order to grow, you can't let failure deter you from putting in the work. Han Ying clenched his fists. He wanted to protest, but Mr. Fang's lecture was telling him what he already knew. Anything he said would just draw more mockery from his classmates. It's as if you assume you'll fail if you do things the right way, so you try something different without even giving the conventional way a chance. Your creativity has no discipline. Have you ever thought there might be a reason we... Mr. Fang's flip phone rang. The old man refused to carry anything made after 2005. He answered. Oui. Han Ying took a calming breath, exchanging a glance with Min in the second row before his eyes returned to Fang. Their teacher was dead silent as someone on the other side of the line spoke. Thank you. Goodbye. Fang muttered before hanging up. He turned to the students, hesitating before he spoke. Let's end class. Chen Bo furrowed his brow. What happened? Classified. Fang sniffed. Ready. The students put their fists on their hips. Salute! They saluted. Mr. Fang was the first to let his hands down as he left the classroom, almost fleeing. And Han Ying could have sworn he saw a shadow slip through the door with him. He would eventually learn that was the night Mr. Fang lost his only daughter. In a misguided, hasty attempt to reclaim some lost relics taken by Imperial Japan, the Tiandi Hui's high command lost 2 full combat squads to the Japanese. Henry blinked and found himself sitting in Silt, watching from the gray banks as the wide, shallow river flowed from the gate somewhere beyond the twisting pass through the mountains. He glanced to his left, finding the bronze-clad warrior sitting next to him. "Who are you?" Henry asked. "Not who you seek," the warrior responded simply. "Asking such questions wastes what little time we have. Try to avoid that from now on." "What's so important that you need to show me?" The warrior stood. "Come." Henry figured he might as well play along until he woke up, so he stood and followed the warrior in wading into the river. Then the ground vanished beneath him. He stumbled as he fell out of the water as quickly as he fell into something else entirely, landing on stone. He squinted in the sunlight as his eyes adjusted from the misty pass he'd just come from. He was back in Athens, but not modern Athens. The Parthenon had no signs of erosion. Statues lined the streets he stood on, their white marble painted over. People had set up wooden stalls in the agora, actually buying and selling things. An orator spoke ancient Greek from a podium in the center of a small crowd. "Tell me what you see, as you see it." "Athens," Henry muttered. "Classical Athens." "No, be more specific." Henry frowned at the warrior. Specific? About what? He didn't know the exact year this would have taken place. How was he supposed to be more specific? "What do you see?" the warrior repeated. Henry sighed and looked around the agora. On a second look, he caught sight of a cart filled with bodies being pushed past the entrance. He noticed how angry the crowd around the orator was. He noticed the merchants and their customers arguing, undoubtedly about something's price. Plague, instability, economic troubles. "We are in the second year of the Peloponnesian War, during the plague of Athens," Henry guessed. The scene before them shifted. The city around him was distinctly late medieval, with colored walls on each of the tightly packed houses, cobblestone streets, and cold weather. Pike and shot formations rushed through the streets as civilians with improvised weapons attempted to defend themselves on a bridge. The soldiers were waving a blue flag with a golden cross on it, the Swedish banner. This was the 30 Years' War, the capstone to a century of global cooling, religious wars, and societal collapse. "What do you see?" "The final battle of the 30 Years' War," Henry said. "The Battle of Prague." The scene changed again, to Caesar's military takeover of Rome, then to the French Revolution, then to the World Wars. "What is the point of showing me this?" Henry asked. "That history repeats? Because it doesn't." "Does it not?" the warrior said as the two of them gazed upon the muddy, charred, horrific hellscape of no man's land. "No, history rhymes. It's all about allegory and comparing time periods to one another. You might find some similarities. You might find a scary amount of similarities. But you will never get a perfect repetition," Henry said. "Hence why I sought you out. Your understanding of the grand epic of mankind. It suits you to this task." "What task?" "A crisis is coming. Collapse is on the horizon for the West." "So? That sort of thing is inevitable. It's been almost 80 years since the end of World War II. That's how these things go." "Only a fool would ask you to stop history in its tracks," the warrior said. "But you must understand there are an opportunistic few who would take advantage of the coming troubles. A few who would seek to make the suffering greater, to make the death tolls higher, to scorch the earth of not just civilization, but culture. Gog and Magog. Those names on the gates. I can't imagine you're here to tell me that cannibals are about to overrun the earth. So what are they?" The scene shifted to a distinctly medieval city. From the sheer number of bodies and the bulbs on their flesh, Henry identified it as the period of the Black Death. "Before the bubonic plague, Europe had no understanding of germ theory," the warrior said. "Families slept in the same bed, naked. There was little to no connection between hygiene and health. Overpopulation from the medieval warm period made cities cramped and crowded. Hands would go through the day touching poisoned water, fecal matter, dirty food, clothes, cleaning water, and more." "Yeah, and a third of the continent paid the price," Henry said. "They had set themselves up unknowingly for a plague to disproportionately decimate their population. Only later did we realize what had gone wrong." The warrior snapped his fingers, changing the scene to Times Square in New York. "The people of your time have done the same to their souls. Your time's abandonment of the spiritual and esoteric, in whatever form one wishes to see them,
has set the world up for a psychological plague of the spirit on the scale of the Black Death. The Magogs are the ones who set you up for this catastrophe."
"What reason do I have to believe you?" Henry asked. "You seem to be asking a lot of me here, burdening me with some task, as you very specifically described it. If this is supposed to move me to some kind of action, it's failed. I'm ambivalent at best. So tell me, specifically, what are you trying to get through to me?"
"This is a fight for survival, for the future. You are one of the few with the skills to outflank the enemy of mankind. When you find the tomb of Alexander, you must do so committing yourself to that destiny."
Henry furrowed his brow. "Oh, must I now?" he muttered, crossing his arms. A fight for survival. What was there to survive for? More humiliation? Despair? Not to mention all the material conditions of the world plummeting. The warrior scoffed.
"You act as if you've come to peace with an inevitability. Do not let your own fear disguise itself before it kills you in your sleep."
Henry slowly, groggily blinked himself awake. His hand fumbled, trying to get a grip on the table over him. He lifted his head from a lumpy makeshift pillow made out of his waist pack wrapped around his Mandarin jacket as he sat up in the cushioned restaurant booth he'd been sleeping in. He'd once again snuck into the ferry's onboard eatery to get something approximating a mattress. Glancing out the window next to him at the pitch-black Aegean Sea, he figured it was way too early for him to be awake. He checked his phone and confirmed that it was another 3 hours before the ferry was due to arrive in Crete. Deciding he needed some fresh air, he stepped through the boat's lobby and staircase towards the upper decks, carefully walking around passengers sleeping on the carpeted floors and in chairs until he reached the metal hatch door to the highest deck accessible to passengers. The full moon reflected off the calm waves of the Mediterranean, the only source of light in a void of blackness. Salty sea wind blew through his hair as he leaned against the metal railing across from the door. He wasn't sure if it was warm or cold, his sweat combining with the humidity to make him feel both. His head still ached from his encounter with Wei Ying. He had relied on martial prowess until now, but that too had failed him. It was the one thing he could match the greatest magicians with, the one thing he could rely on. And Wei Ying had taken that from him too. He stared at the 4-story drop to the lower decks below, his hands quivering. The warrior's words echoed in his head. "Do not let your own fear disguise itself before it kills you in your sleep." He wasn't afraid. He wouldn't be out here in the first place if he was afraid. But another thought occurred to him. What business did he have going after Alexander's tomb? When Alexander was his age, he was already king of Macedon. Meanwhile, Henry was a college dropout and a flunking magician, not to mention a defector. He squeezed his eyes shut. The more he felt sorry for himself, the more useless he was. Quit whining, he told himself. It had only gone wrong because he had let his emotions get the best of him, but a part of him was indignant at the idea of having to control his emotions while Wei Ying had been the one at fault. His back tingled with the resonance of an old wound. How had he been so stoic when receiving it? It was the worst pain he'd ever felt in his life, and yet he remembered staring at High Command, at his brother, with nothing but sweat and a silent promise of retribution on his face. The hatch door to the deck creaked open. Henry glanced back as Marion stepped out onto the metal. "What are you doing out here?" she asked, stretching in that expansive way after waking up. "Just admiring the sights," Henry nodded at the moon. "You're pretty sweaty from moon watching," she chuckled as she joined him on the railing. She pulled out a cigarette and stuck it between her lips before offering him one. "It's the salt water," he said, "and I don't partake." "No, for me it's the salt water. I'm sticky. You're soaked," she said, lighting her cigarette. Henry grimaced. "Didn't sleep so well, did you?" He shook his head, leaning on the railing. "Those dreams are a pain in the ass." Marion nodded as she blew out a jet stream of smoke. "I don't think they are designed to remind us of pleasant moments." Henry had half a mind to ask her what she'd seen, but he knew that would come with revealing his own past, something he was very interested in avoiding. "I take it yours have something to do with your brother?" Henry didn't confirm nor deny it, but his shifting posture told her all she needed to know. "I can't believe that coward beat me in a fight," he blurted out. "Fuck. Just forget You can speak freely with me," Marion assured him. That wasn't the problem. Look, next time, I won't let my brother get to me. I almost got us killed. It won't happen again," Henry said. "I'm just not used to working with other people. Sometimes I forget that there are more lives than mine at stake." Marion shrugged, tapping her ashes off the side of the deck. "Well, I suppose I can forgive a few counts of reckless endangerment." Henry scoffed, leaning away from her. "You are way too nice to be a magician." She grinned. "That's not a compliment. It freaks me out." Henry was serious, but her unapologetic demeanor was about equal parts impressive and off-putting. "Don't expect me to spill anything in return. But you don't seem like the type to be participating in this kind of race. And didn't you say you were the one who brought us together? Why?" Marion grimaced, her lips thinning out as she considered the question. "If I'm honest," she started, "it's a little too personal for my liking." Henry nodded. "Guess we're in the same boat." He glanced at the deck below them. "Get it?" Marion scrunched her nose up in faux disgust, though she was still grinning as she rolled her eyes. "And what about you, Mr. Broody? What's the plan for your 15 billion? Didn't I just say I wouldn't spill anything? What, are you too shy to talk about your hopes and dreams about, I don't know, buying a house in Istria?" She mocked him, putting her cigarette out on the metal railing. "Bold of you to assume I want to move to Europe," Henry said. "No, it's not about the money for me. It's deeper than that." Well, you and I may have our secrets." Henry almost yelped as Marion dug her hands into his pockets and fished out the honor coin. "But I'll still let you in on a little something. These coins are more than just keys." She planted the wrapped coin in his palm. "See you at sunrise." With that, she walked off towards the hatch door, heading back down below deck. Henry unwrapped the coin, raising an eyebrow at the face of Achilles as he clutched it with its shielding cloth. The coin began to glow with a soft, red light as he held it to himself, particularly towards his armpits, towards his swords. He lifted an arm and moved the coin closer to his blade. The light became more intense. "What the hell?" Henry drew the sword. He kept moving the two items closer, spurring the light to brighten until the two touched. The coin spewed out a jet of sparks as it touched the flat of the sword's blade, almost causing Henry to drop them as he pulled them apart. Hesitating, he pushed the edge of the coin against the blade again. He touched the weapon, and it screamed with a crisp noise of red-hot iron being quenched, spraying crimson sparks all over the deck. Henry drew the coin up the flat of the blade. A series of old Chinese characters appeared on the metal, flaring red before cooling to a darkened etching. The characters read, "Gan Jiang." Henry quickly did the same to his other sword. Its markings were different. Mo Ye. Both names were from a Chinese myth. The riverstone under his shirt felt near to burning against his skin. He could even feel something emanating from the weapons with his own senses before the presence faded with the glow. Almost like a tether, a thread of fate binding him to the swords. He wrapped the coin back up and pocketed it before holding his swords aloft. He slowly uncurled his fingers from the handles and removed them. The swords hovered in the air. With a thought, the handles zipped back to his palms, causing him to stumble. No way.